So my mom always told me that she thinks I should have been baked in the oven just a little bit longer. And while I do understand what she meant by that, I still didn't completely get it because not everything needs to be baked in the oven forever. You ever have like gooey cookies? Do you know why they're gooey? Because they aren't like completely overbaked. So despite my verbally abusive mom, I still didn't completely understand this whole idea of not baking in the oven long enough. Sure, if it's not ready, it's not ready, but at the same time, do you want it overdone? And it's funny because when it comes to games, I can think of a lot of games that are overdone. Things like Assassin's Creed, even some of the Final Fantasies, like towards the end, when you're really just wanting to wrap things up and they just keep going. I think you know the type of games I'm talking about. But I think I finally have a really good representation of a game that just needed to stay in the oven a little bit longer. And that's a game I've been playing for about the last week and a half or so. And that's a game called Lynked. Now, this is one of those games that Shadow dropped at the Nintendo Direct, and one that I was pretty excited to check out. But before we get into that, please hit that like and subscribe button, help this channel grow. It means the world to me, and it costs you absolutely nothing. Anyway, back to this game. So it sells itself as a cozy roguelite and almost a 50-50 match, which I would agree that's what it is. It's a tale of two games in a way, but honestly, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to the actual story of the game, which is a very simple, almost under-detailed story, but it's fine because really what it does is just add structure for the gameplay, and that's what a lot of these stories are. You know, light on details, but they give you reason for reason, I suppose. Anyway, in this game, you're supposed to be helping rebuild this village, this whole town that was made up of robots, or Unibots as they're called. And every time that you unlock or rescue them from their captors, you also unlock a building. Usually it's like a place of business, or it's their residence, something like that. But once you unlock it, then you're able to place it wherever you want and to slowly rebuild this town. And from there, you usually have access to the resources that that business or building provided, as well as the opportunity to do side quests, because that Unibot that you rescued now wants you to go back and rescue other Unibots or do other jobs for it. And I have to say, for like the first few hours, I really enjoyed this little loop. Getting to a place where I was building up friendship points, which I'll explain about in a little bit, to the point where the buildings stopped becoming like just this random area where a bunch of buildings are, and it started to look more like a town. And when town designing got old, that's when combat took over, and that's when I would go take different missions. I was even trying to, at the beginning anyway, I was trying not to do the campaign missions. I wanted to do as many side quests as I could because they were sort of addictive, and it did give me a chance to upgrade my character. You see, like I mentioned before about the friendship points, well, you have this grappling hook kind of thing that becomes one of your main tools, if you will, and the only way to really upgrade that is with friendship points. And you get these friendship points by doing random tasks for the NPCs, whatever they want you to do, which is usually rescue other bots, but after a while it's doing menial stuff like making food or finding different crafting items. Regardless, they all give you some sort of friendship points, and the amount that you can actually upgrade your grappling hook is pretty crazy, so it's worth it to do it if you're really enjoying the combat. And again, at the beginning, I did, because it really did feel sort of like a Hades style combat. I would argue more of a Diablo style, like an old top-down kind of vibe going to it, and I also really enjoyed the creative way that they implemented difficulty. So this can be an online game where you can have some of your friends join you and help you with a run, or you can go by yourself. Or if you're having problems, you can actually get an NPC to help you. And this, I think, is sort of a really creative, unique way to implement like an easy mode, if you will. Now, the NPC isn't always going to be like the best, but he's actually a pretty solid combatant. Like there was numerous times where I would go down in a boss fight, and if he hadn't revived me, I'd be done for. And so this computer controlled ally is actually a relatively good fighter, and not just some sort of support character that once you go down, it's completely over. No, they do more than that. And by the way, I keep saying he, but that's just because that's what mine was. There's a bunch of different options for you to choose from to be able to help you. Early on, I think there's only like 2, but they grow from there. And while you're out on these combat runs, you can, of course, also find a lot of equipment. You need to upgrade your armor as well as upgrade your weapon. You, at that point, can also add modifiers to your weapon to, I don't know, make them do fire damage or poison damage, whatever you have. And early on, it really does make the game seem fresh. But again, I said early on, see, the biggest problem with this game is for me, it was a couple hours, I just started noticing how much everything repeated. And when I say repeat, I mean repeat. Like, I was essentially going to the exact same locations to unlock and save different Unibots. Like, there was no difference. It was the exact same levels, just a different Unibot in the cage than from before. Same bad guys, same everything. It was almost incredibly lazy, much they didn't put in there. Now, I get it because a lot of the game actually performs really well. A lot of the combat, they put work in, don't get me wrong. But it seemed like they really only had like a few levels that they really had mapped out that they liked running with, because they would consistently go back to these same levels, these same designs. And I know, lazy seems really harsh. But what I meant though is by putting these same NPCs in the same exact cages, it's like you couldn't even move them to different cages or put them somewhere else in the map. Like, just something that would shake things up just a tad bit might have actually went a long way, because I understand reusing some of the same assets or a lot of the same assets, especially if it's in the same biome, and I get all of that, like, and that's totally fine. But it's the fact that these things were so repetitious that I could almost even predict what enemies were going to attack me when, just because of how many times I had done certain errands for certain NPCs. And now, to be fair, I want to be clear on this. Most of this happened during the side quests, or with the side quests. The actual main campaign did change up the levels quite a bit, or at least a little bit, enough that it didn't bother me. But the problem is you need to do those side quests. You really do. Like, if you want to get the most out of the game, you want to build your village up the best way possible, you want to upgrade your character, all of that needs to be done through side quests. And so it was a necessary evil to have to go through all of that, and it just really beats you over the head with repetition. It felt to me in a lot of ways like a free-to-play game that wasn't free to play, and that's where just the fatigue of the game really took over. And for me, that was all I needed to know. After about 5 to 6 hours of the game, I just didn't want to play anymore, and I ended up, I'm not gonna lie, I ended up playing about 10 hours, and I couldn't. It was one of those games, like the last 3 to 4 hours I was forcing myself to play it, just because I was hoping that things would change, hoping that there would be more of an expansion to it, and there never really was. And it's so weird, because if I had done a first impressions of this game, I would have said it's really fun and I really enjoyed it. It's just that formula gets old after a while and nothing really changes in it. And I don't know, that's just my thoughts on Linked. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. If this is a game that you've checked out, one you're interested in, one that you saw during the direct, anything and everything in that comment section, I'm really curious about, because for me, I in some ways feel like I'm being too harsh on the game. Like, hear me out, when it comes to combat, it's actually really good. The buttons are really responsive, the combat is relatively fun, honestly. The weapons get old after a while, and the inability to really upgrade your weapons much past your level, that's also really annoying. But as far as like just the pure combat, it's actually pretty good. I enjoyed the UI, the building experience. Like, it wasn't too over the top and annoying. It was relatively user friendly. The performance of the game, also really good. A lot of these things that you would mark, negative, or you'd have an issue with, they actually delivered. It was just the gameplay got really repetitious. And so, I don't know, for me, that's why I would give it like a 6.5 out of 10. But again, very, very curious what you guys have to think about this one. But again, that is just my thoughts on it. If you have different opinions, I really want to hear them. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Love y'all. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.